This conference will now be recorded.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to this quick little video on Hu, the god of the Sphinx. The Black Nile Valley called this statue Hu, as well as Ra Heroxi or Shizep Ankh Atum. We'll focus on the word Hu as his title today, his name. And I'm going to go through this video in layers of depth. We're going to start with decoding the Sphinx from the most obvious level, and then descend into deeper strata of understanding. So the first thing is the actual image of the Sphinx. Okay? So we have an image here. Let's pull this up. All right. First of all, the Sphinx, this is not the exact same Sphinx of Giza, but it is the same basic structure. And I like this face because it does show him in his actual, natural, original African face. So the Sphinx is a composite sculpture, and it has layers of messaging to humanity. First of all, it is part lion, part human. Clearly, this speaks to a message of who we are. In fact, between the paws of the Sphinx was a stela or a stone engraving that said, "Know thyself." So that is the theme of the storyline of the Sphinx. Who are you? Who are we? The answer is this statue. This statue represents your identity. And as such, it's saying you have two basic parts to you: a lower animal part and a more elevated, ascended human intelligence part. People often say, yes, it's obvious, we're part animal, animalistic nature, and then human nature, but the Sphinx is not quite saying you're human. This is the head of a pharaoh, an enlightened leader, wearing this mask, not this mask, this crown, this headdress called the nemes. And the word nemes is ancient Egyptian, ancient rinkam, for enlightenment, to be enlightened. So this is an enlightened person with an animal body. This enlightenment is key, for he has the headdress of enlightenment, and he has the cobra of the third eye. So this is definitely not an ordinary human being. This is what we will call a divine man, a God man, an ascended master, who's also a leader. So, with that said, let's dive into the most basic meaning of the Sphinx here, of Hu. The animal part represents your subconscious involuntary function. You cannot control your breathing function all the time consciously. You can't control your blood pressure. You can't control digestion of food details. You can't control the thought drift that pops into your mind. You can't control the emotional knee-jerk reactions you have in certain situations. They just kind of appear. So this animal represents the animating or the animalistic impulses that are not under your command. They're automata, automatic pilot, knee-jerk, conditioning, programming, instincts, and impulses. Now, I'm going to iterate. These are involuntary functions. You are not responsible for them. They're automatic pilot. The head, the enlightened head, staring at the due east point, actually due east, We'll discuss that more in a bit. The head is enlightened consciousness. So, know thyself. Well, which part is thyself? Is it the body of the lion, the animalistic impulses, or is it the enlightened mind that wears the headdress of enlightenment? Clearly, it's the enlightened mind. You are not to identify as the animalistic impulses, the emotional fear, anger, jealousy, hunger, rage. Those impulses are not you. The enlightened consciousness is observing those automatic triggers within a lower part of itself called the animal, the lion. You are the observer. You are the divine intelligence watching all of your automatic reactions to life. This is a symbol of a pharaoh, a leader, an African leader. This is part of what was used to train leaders, leadership training, Kemetic style. And I don't want to say African style per se either, because not all Africans trained their leaders in this way. This is a uniquely Kamau, Nile Valley methodology of leadership training. And the first thing they told the leaders is you have to know yourself before you lead others. And you're going to find that you become a leader, either of your own bad habits, your own self, your emotions, leader of your family, or leader of a nation, or of an enterprise or company. You're going to have emotional side to you, these impulsive, knee-jerk reactions, but they are to be observed from an enlightened perspective by your divine mind, your divine higher enlightened consciousness. So that's very important to know when you're a leader, because it's going to be filled with things that will try to trigger your hot red buttons. And you must not react from those when leading or guiding others. Okay? So, how do we test this in a person? Well, if you're not your lower nature, your animalistic nature, you are the observer of that, the divine intelligence that guides that. You must not let the animal lead you. You must not let it control you. And you must, most of all, not identify with it. You must rather tame it, train it, and put it to good use. Now, how do you do that? I'll discuss it a bit more towards the end, but I'll give an indicator here that I finished here a very simple set of sounds that correspond to the animal part of the Sphinx, your subconscious mind. That's all it means. The line means your subconscious mind, your not self, your animalistic impulses, your knee-jerk conditionings and reactions to life. And to tame it, music calms the savage beast. So I recorded with very minimal sound, very pure, kind of quiet, specific energy, the sounds you're going to get on these chants. This chant, if you choose to get it, up to you. If you get this audio, you're going to receive several sounds that tame the animal within you. And I'll go over the sounds a bit towards the end of the video. Now, so remember, you must not identify with the animalistic part of you, particularly when you're trying to lead people or take control of your own life. Transcend that with the higher head. Now, the Sphinx is staring at stars, as you see here. Okay? He's staring at the sky, and he's watching charts. We'll come to that a little bit later as well, that he is a leader, an enlightened spiritual master or lady who is not controlled by his or her animalistic impulses. through observing how the astrology chart trigger reactions in the subconscious mind through transit. But I want to go first into a bit of the math about the Sphinx, because remember, the Sphinx is a statue. All Kemetic drawings, jewelry, carvings, engravings, statues, buildings, architecture were tools used to encode ma'at, or mathematical knowledge, in that medium. So we're going to jump now to this image. The first thing I would love for you to notice is this is, first of all, an aerial view of the Sphinx, but notice the right paw, so he's facing east, so the right paw is on the south side, this kind of blue box, and this red box is the left side of the body, and that's towards the north. So we have the two lands of the north and south here, and Kemet was called Smatawi, was the land of the lotus and the bee, the sedge and the bee, I mean. And so the two lands, the north and the south, and here we're dividing the Sphinx into north and south in congruency with the ancient tradition of Smatawi, the two lands as one. These two lands refer to your brain hemisphere, so we divided this line into two halves, and the lower blue box here corresponds to your southern brain, which is called your right brain, and the red box is your northern brain or your left brain. The right brain is it's the intuitive, spiritual, introspective, feminine, creative, inward, spirit perceiving brain. And just looking at that from this angle, it's saying the right inner spiritual brain, the psychological and inner world, should be longer than, because you see these paws are not the same length. The left and right are not the same length. So the right feminine, inward, artistic, meditative, spiritual brain hemisphere should be more predominant than the left, deductive, reductive, Cartesian logic, locking things in boxes, separative, disconnecting left brain. Right there telling you, as a leader, your psychological, spiritual mind is more important, should have greater reach than your external, materialistic, outward mind. That's the first message. The next thing is we then have these divisions within each of these rectangles, the blue and red one. We see here there's a line here at the front of this haunch at the blue, and then this haunch forms another line. Now, these lines divide the two halves of the Sphinx into what's called the golden ratio. Okay? So, very quickly, I'm going to move rather quickly to the math here. Let's call line, the shorter line of either one of these rectangles, the shorter line, let's call that segment A. Let's call the longer of the two lines segment B, either the longer red or the longer blue line up here, this medial longer red or medial longer blue. And let's call the full length of the longest side, the blue line, line C. We have segment A, segment B, and then down here, this long, complete one, segment C. All right? So, we're going to go over the measures very quickly in what's called royal cubit, which is a very sacred measure. We'll discuss that later on. Not in this video, though. I don't believe I'll have time in this video. But segment A, which is lower right haunch rectangle, is 53.48 royal cubit. This longer blue, lower right, is 86.52 royal cubit. And the entire length is 140 world cubits. And it so happens that the length of the boat pits along Giza Great Pyramid are also the same length as 140 world cubits, linking the Sphinx to the boat pits of the Great Pyramid. Okay, so we have segment A, which is 53.48 world cubits, segment B, which is 86.52 world cubits, and segment C, the sum of A and B, is 140 world cubits. Some quick math, I'm going to go fast again. Phi is, let's see if we have phi here. This is a phi spiral, and it's equal to the numbers 1.618, called a capital phi, or 0.618, called a lowercase phi. Okay? Now, if you take A over B, you divide A by B, so A over B, 53.48 over 86.52, you get 0.618, the lowercase phi. If you take B over C, B is 86.52 over 140, you get again 0.618, phi again. If you take C, the full length, over B, the longer segment, that is, if you take 140 over 86.52, you'll get 1.618, the capital phi. So what it means is the golden ratio means that A, the shorter line, is to B, the longer line, as B, the longer line, is to C. I went over the math. You can replay this part of the video to do it on your own with your calculator, and you'll see you get these numbers of phi. Okay? So, why did they encode phi to leaders? What's the messaging of this great manual of leadership? This is actually a manual of leadership. Okay? So we just saw this image of phi, and I chose this spiraling image because it encapsulates the main message of phi. So let's look at it first from this angle, actually. The shortest segment is to the longer segment, as the longer segment is to the total length. So A is to B as B is to C. So it's saying the earlier generation extended itself to make a longer generation, and the longer generation contains the entirety of all generations. Otherwise said, phi means maintaining divine growth of your ancestral tradition properly, harmoniously over cycles of generations. Okay, this is one generation of people. They have kids, and they have kids, and their kids have kids, and they have another generation here. And they have kids, and they have more kids, and they have more kids, and we have another generation here. You see? So we keep getting, starting from the ancestral root tradition here, what we call Ma'at, or the great canon of mathematics. Ma'at, the earliest Kamal started the Ma'at tradition, and they had kids who had kids, and it looped around to the next generation of people, but they're still following the same curve, the same path of their ancestors. And then those kids have kids, and they have kids, and they have grandkids and kids, and it goes on, and but they're still following the same path of curvature of the ancestors before them. Okay, and then this generation, and then the next generation is following on a larger scale the same curvature, the same path. So this is saying the phi is about maintaining the integrity of the Kemetic culture over ever expanding coils of generation, ever growing generations of children. If you maintain the root culture, but adapt it to whatever scale of experience you're on, you will maintain this beautiful golden ratio. The divine will flow This blue line is the divine mathematics flowing and sustaining every generation that grows into ever bigger generations, ever bigger, and grows and grows. Okay? It's a lot with maintaining ancestral divine culture. So the Sphinx is saying leaders must maintain the original divine culture of Ma'at at all scales through all generations for all eternity. So the blue line of Ma'at here, of divine beauty and harmony, threads through every generation. This is an ancestor symbol. It forms a conch shell shape or an earlobe shape because it's saying, listen to the original culture of your ancestors. Through a conch, like a seashell, listen to the sound of your ancestors, or it kind of resembles a human ear. Okay? So, I wanted to prove to you in code 5, to the A is to B to B is to C ratio, the golden Sphinx, the golden ratio, that can also be drawn not linearly as segments of a line, but in curves here, the same thing. Okay? Now, that is key. I wish to go now to the next part of the Sphinx, which is, well, let's move on to this part. There's something few people are aware of about the Sphinx. You see, oh, that's nice and big for us. Okay. So here we have this fissure. You see this kind of fissure, this opening? The ancient Kamal, the blacks of the Nile Valley, originally kept this open. But as you'll see in our next image, it's right here. You can see it. It was filled in by modern archaeologists to maintain the structural integrity of the sculpture. But originally, this was kept hollow, cut through, because that's the way they found it. This is a wound on the back of the lion. This is something missing. This is a weakness, an insecurity, a literal Achilles heel in the heel or the back leg of the lion. Okay? In fact, there's a star in this constellation of Leo that he refers to, the lion, of course, of Leo, near the tail of the lion called Zosma. And when you work with that star in astrology, it deals a lot with sustaining a wound. So, this fissure that was worshipped by the Kamal was a message to leaders. When you try to lead yourself to being a better person, be the leader of your emotions, the leader of your family, the leader of your company, or the leader of a nation, whatever scale you're on of leading, you're going to experience trauma. You're going to get hurt. You're going to realize your weak spots, your Achilles heel, the areas of your life that are weak and missing in structural strength. No matter how wonderful you think you are, you're going to encounter the dark night of the soul, your greatest fear, your real weakness and insecurity. And it's going to come from your lion, your animalistic nature, your lower animal nature. There's going to be something in your emotions and your understanding of life, emotionally and psychologically, where you're going to see your weaknesses exposed while you're ruling and leading. Now, there's something very interesting about this fissure. There's a number called Euler's number, which is E for Eulers, or the E-U-L-E-R. Euler's number is E equals 2.718. This is a number used very heavily in banking and in economics for determining what's called compound interest. I won't go too much into that. I may do another class more into the math of today's little video. But let's talk a little bit about it. Okay? Now, This fissure and the length of the Sphinx talk to this number. Euler's number is a universal constant. It's also Euler's number and Euler's equation, but for now, we'll just keep it light. If you take the length of the Sphinx, let's go back to that image. If you take the length of the lower blue line, okay, that would be in meters, 73 meters. If you take the width of this rump portion, this line here, this vertical here, it would be 19 meters. Now, Euler's number is hiding as a messaging to all leaders. If you multiply the Sphinx's width of 19 meters times Euler's 2.718 number, you get 51.84, which is the slope, very close to the slope of the Great Pyramid, of its angle. If you multiply 51.84 by the square root of 2, and the square root of 2 is used very heavily on the Giza Plateau. Again, I'll go into that later on at other videos. You get 73 meters, which is the length of this southern blue line. So we're seeing that the Sphinx's width times the square root of 2 times 2.718 Eulers equals 73 meters. And 19 meters times the square root times E equals 73 meters, okay? So we're seeing that when you input Euler's function into the measurement of the Sphinx, it holds. But wait, there's more. This fissure here, also has measures that are quite extraordinary. Okay? This fissure that's been filled in here. So let's talk about it. Well, if you were to measure from the center of the fissure, like the center of the empty space, to the back point, the back rump area, let's call that segment A, from the middle of the fissure to the end of the Sphinx, let's call that segment A. Yes, and let's call segment B from the middle point of the fissure to the front longest paw, the right paw. Let's call that B. Okay, the ratio of their measures, B over A, would equal 2.718. So the fissure, when measured, the back part of the fissure, going from the middle of the hole, the back rump, as segment B, length A, and from the middle of the fissure to the front right paw tip is segment B. You measure those with B over A, you'll get 2.718 Euler's number. So we saw the golden ratio, the perfect ratio. So this idea of perfection is showing up, but then we have this other idea of imperfection, flaw, weakness, problematic. It's saying leaders have golden dreams to bring perfection to a field, perfection to their kingdom, but there's going to always be weak spots, flaws, and mistakes. Okay? Now, Euler's number is used heavily, as I mentioned, in compound interest. Compound interest basically means you never will get a return no matter how many times you compound your investment past Euler's number of 2.718% return. It's like this number that limits growth. So we have this fissure limiting you, weakening you, your Achilles heel, your triggers, your trauma, your insecurities, a limit. And the number doing this is 2.78, the number of limits, particularly in economics, more in other things in nature too. What does it mean? It means that no matter how great you become as king or queen, no matter how wonderful you are, whatever big star you become, big CEO you become, big man on campus you become, the head gal in charge, the universe will limit you by traumatizing you, by triggering your weakness, triggering your flaw, triggering your insecurity. And that will keep you humble, bring you back to earth, cut you down to size. You can't, you see, Euler's number says you can't keep expanding, expanding, expanding. Nature will find a way of limiting you. It's very similar to the speed of light, which is hiding also on Giza. One day I will discuss this in another class, another video. But Giza, the Great Pyramid, encodes through several methods the knowledge of the speed of light. All I'll say about it is that the speed of light is the fastest thing in the known universe. Imagine you are running and you are light, the fastest thing in the universe, and other people try to reach your speed, catch up to you on the racetrack. Well, as light, you have some kind of magic wand, some kind of power, that when any other entity or body approaches your speed, they somehow gain weight, they gain mass, and they slow down. And their time frame shifts. The Kamal talked about this, and Einstein learned from the Kamal, the Blacks of the Nile Valley, about this phenomenon. How any mass in motion that approaches the speed of light will be slowed down because its velocity will convert into mass, weighing it down, and by becoming heavier and heavier, it can't go as fast as light itself. This also bends and warps time frames. I won't go to that again right now. So there are these ideas. Eulers is kind of like a philosophical speed of light spell. If you keep being greedy, the Sphinx is saying, you're the king, you're the queen, you rule the world. But if you keep being greedy and wanting more and more and more, or being more and more emotional, more and more reactive, more and more insecure, more and more paranoid, the universe will check you, limit you, and arrest your expansiveness and enter you into a box of ring past knot of limit. So being a leader is to be wounded, to be traumatized, and to face that you can't keep going on at that level forever. Intensive action cannot be extensive. This is Euler's message. Greed, over the top, overdoing everything over and over and over, a long, long time, cannot go on forever. Intensive action cannot be extensive. Okay? So, I want to now go to the next feature of the Sphinx, the next constant encoded mathematically as a messaging to leaders, and that is the concept of pi. Okay, now pi is shown in the Sphinx several ways, but if you took around his head, his headband, okay, if you put a headband around him, which he does have, and you measure that, it measures 103 feet. Okay, 103 feet equals 60 row cubits, or 31.41 meters. This is the number, 314. So that headband, which is 103 feet, or 60 row cubits, or 31.41 meters, you hear in the last one, 31.41, the pi number is 3.14 with the decimal moved. Okay? Now, if you took the Sphinx here and drew a circle, I can't really draw one on the screen, but a circle that touches the front and the back of the longest paw, okay, the Sphinx then becomes the diameter, the dividing line between, in the center of the circle. It would equal 73.3 meters, or 140 world cubic. And the circumference of the circle, the perimeter, would equal, in meters, 230.3 meters, or 440 world cubic. And 440 world cubic, or 230.3 meters, is the length of the side of the pyramid. The Sphinx's length linked to pi, to the length of the side of the Great Pyramid. Okay, so we saw pi through its headband, and we're seeing it that if the Sphinx is the diameter of its own circle, this diameter is the same length as one side of the Great Pyramid. Okay? Now, pi, what is the mystery of pi? Pi is, let's see, did I have an image here of pi? I think I did here. Maybe I didn't put it in my, oh, there it is. Okay, here's pi. Yep. Okay. So if the green line were the Sphinx, it would be the same length in royal cubits or in meters as one side of the Great Pyramid. But a diameter divides a circle into hemispheres, left and right side, upper and lower side, like the Sphinx has a left and right paw side. But the diameter takes a whole oneness of a circle and makes it dualistic, binary. Duality implies tension. So that the headband around the enlightened pharaoh's head is saying, you're going to find your two brain hemispheres, your upper hemisphere, left brain, your other hemisphere, right brain, will have tension. You're going to have mental and emotional tension. You're going to meet a lot of tensions, conflicts to resolve, schedules that don't come through, workers that don't do their job. Constant conflict, if you think of this black circle as the whole project, the diameter is saying you're going to have always within your project conflicts, tensions, problems. Okay? And you have to make sure that the duality of the problem, the antagonism, work within the project. You must learn to resolve conflict within the circle of the project of unity and success, wholeness. The circle can mean God, having God consciousness to help you resolve the internal conflicts of your family, yourself, your company, or your nation. Now, if you took this green diameter and you laid a string on it, let me explain exactly what 3.14 is talking about visually. If we have this green string, okay, pi is the relationship between diameter to circumference or perimeter. Okay? You take this green string measure, it means you would need 1, 2, 3 green strings to encircle the black circle, plus a tiny bit more string than just 3. You need 0.14 of a string. 0.14 of a string. You need 3 strings plus 0.14, tiny extra of the string. And then this whole circle will be in green. Now, this 3.14159 you see here, 14, 15, 9, is a fraction that is irrational. It keeps going on and on without repeating. This means no matter how much we try to attain perfection in our projects, cells, families, companies, or nations, there will always be some tiny things you miss, that you're blind to, that you can't see. There's always imperfection on the way to perfection. There's always things you'll miss. And that's okay. That's part of the pursuit of the circle of success, wholeness, godliness in your project. It's telling you as a leader or a person trying to improve themselves or a situation that go for perfection, but no, you'll always be fractions away from it. That the project or nature will always send tiny little things that you forget, you didn't see, you overlooked, that got you, that you misunderstood. But that's part of the process of duality trying to balance with wholeness, of the diameter trying to balance out with the circumference perimeter. It's a fantastic set of messages being given to leaders in this miraculous sculpture. Now, pi is also shown through another method, and I'm going to go quickly through this one. It's kind of, I have here a few measures that are key to help visualize this. I'm going to just simply go through the math. If you are so inclined, again, return this part of the video and type it into your computer or into your calculator, and you'll see. The length of the Sphinx in feet is 240 feet, as you see here at the bottom. The height is 66 feet. What's not shown here is the headband, okay, area. The circumference of the head is 13.8 feet. I'm going to go through the math. You can check it if you like later. I want to get to the point of what it's saying. So length 240 feet times height 66 feet equals 15,840. We're going to now divide 15,840 by 13.8, the circumference of the head, and that number yields 1147.826. We now take our new number, 1147.826, divided by pi, 3.14159. We get a remarkable number, 365.3, the number of days in a year. We will also take the 1147.826 and divide it by that length of a year, round it up. We're going to divide it by 365.25, and we get what number? 3.142, pi. So pi is shown in the headband by itself. Pi is shown in the length of the Sphinx if it were the diameter of a circle, linking its length to the length of the side of the Great Pyramid through pi, where the Sphinx is the diameter of a circle. And then finally, to that sequence of numbers between the length, the height, and the head circumference of 13.8, I read off a bunch of numbers and functions that use pi and created pi. So pi is built into this. Tension, fight, diversity, problems are built into every project. Go for the circle of perfection, the golden circle of perfection. Resolve the internal conflicts within your circle or project or entity towards balanced fairness, but know you're going to always make mistakes, mishaps, and miscalculations. It's never ending. It'll never be perfect, but keep trying to keep things in the divine balanced circle. Okay? So, that is that. Now, that is that. Okay. So, the Sphinx is staring, as I said, at the stars. So he's staring at the horizon, and he's laying upon what's called, he's looking due east. Due east means exactly at the equator. Okay? Now, this line here is the line of the equator. So the Sphinx on the Earth would be exactly staring into this arrow tail, exactly, called due east. Okay? Now, the equator and the word equal have a semantic link. So the equator is the middle of the bulge of the Earth's circular center, dividing north hemisphere and south hemisphere into equal basic heads. It's about maintaining equality, the equator, equalator. I made up that word, okay? Because when you come from a balanced point of fairness, objectivity, equality, non-partisanship, non-bias, non-prejudice, then you will see what really has to be done for all parties involved to stay centered, to feel equally respected. Okay, now, the Sphinx is staring at the equator, which means he is looking at what's called equatorial coordinate system. There are many ways to locate something on the Earth, through longitude, latitude, on the sky, through right ascension, declination, etc. There's a net in the celestial globe called the equatorial line, and the Sphinx is their guardian. So let's look at that very quickly. Here in my software, this is the very advanced astronomy software, not astrology software. It's very, very astronomically powerful. This line, this red line with the vertical tick marks in it, is the equator. The Sphinx is staring exactly along this line, this axis. And I want to go through it. He's in control of I named them as 12 constellations of the equator. Aries, Gemini, Taurus, Scorpio, Virgo, all of those are the signs on the ecliptic, the planet line of motion, really the sun's line of motion, and the planets are very near the ecliptic. That's the green line. That's the ecliptic. They're going through, you see, Leo, Cancer, Gemini, Taurus, okay? But down here we see another line, the red line of the equator, which is the ley line that the Sphinx is guarding. And let's go through what he guards. First of all, we see here Orion, the top belt star Mintaka, is almost exactly on the equator. Okay? Since this in Egypt, in ancient, not Egypt, but in ancient Kemetic, Egypt is modern country ruled by the Arabs. But ancient Kemet was ruled by the blacks. So in the black nation of the Kamau, Orion was the king of the gods, so he's got to be king of this line of energy because his very belt star, and to us it's not a belt star, it's actually his phallus, the tip of his phallus. But let's take a little skywalk, let's be Skywalker for a while, and see what other constellations are on this red line of the Sphinx. So we have Orion, crosses Taurus here, then crosses Cetus or Kraken. This constellation owns the white races here. Then it cuts through Pisces, touches Aquarius, goes through Aquila here. Then I count these as one constellation, Ophiuchus and Serpens. Cuts through them. And then spends most of its length through Virgo, actually all of Virgo, has the equator running through it, so she's very important. And going through, we don't count this line's tail because this is the more modern rendition. And it goes through this little measuring tool called I think it's called, not scutum, because the word for it escapes me. And then through Hydra, okay. Then through Monoceros, the unicorn, back to Orion. So the Sphinx guards this line of constellations, And these are the star energies that he knows will keep things in balance and shows the tension between balance and imbalance and equality. Just by the way, this is today, September 17th, 2024. You see the sun is almost near this red-green X marks the spot. That means it's approaching the equator or the equinox. The fall equinox is September, and in about 3 days, the sun will be right here, and that'll be the first day of fall. Okay? Now, if we add, let's see if we can add the grid of the equator. You see red lines appearing slowly here. This is the webbing. Let's see here. Yes, okay. We have here the webbing of the equatorial coordinate system, and this red grid belongs to the Sphinx. That's another mystery, another kind of astrology that's been lost to the modern astrological world, but we will revive it in due time here at the Golden Beetle, which will soon be called the Temple of Nut, the Temple of Nut, the goddess of the sky. Okay, so the Sphinx is guarding the equator, and anything near the equator, any planet that have what's called declination, which means how far they are from the equator. Any planet near 0 degrees of declination, very near, on 0 or very near to it, maybe 1 or 2 degrees, maybe 3 from the equator, those planets act universally. If in your chart you have any planets that have very low declination, very close to 0, that means those planets know how to be universal, how to be fair and just to all people, how to be inclusive and embracing of all types and all people and all things, versus what's called an out-of-bounds planet, which is very far from the equator, past 23.5 degrees, north or south of the equator, called out-of-bounds planets. They're rogue planets, rebellious planets. They could be criminals. They don't act socially. They act outside of the mores and norms of society. They could be iconoclastic, cutting edge, very wild, rebels out of cause. So the farther you go from the ecliptic maxima, which is 23 positive or north of the equator, 0.5, or 23 south of the equator, negative, 20.5, you go past 23.5, those planets act more wild. They're more socially disturbing. As they come close to 0, they're very universal and very in line with the zeitgeist of society, very much in tune with the times and the world they live in. The negative side of planets near the equator, declination near 0, is that they can sometimes be very slick. They know how to manipulate people very well. They speak to people's universal thoughts, universal feelings, and can manipulate people by speaking to their universal needs and their universal heart. I have seen that. So that's that. And the Sphinx controls all of this. Okay? So now let's make sure we've covered everything about the Sphinx, the main things that we'll touch on today. We discussed about the age we're in, and here we see the Sphinx stares at vernal equinox, spring, first day of spring sunrise. You want to ask, what constellation is the Sphinx staring at? Right now in 2024, he's staring at around 5 degrees Pisces. Every 72 years, he stares at 1 degree lower. So if today he's staring at 5 degrees Pisces, in 72 years from now, he'll stare at 4 degrees Pisces. At 72 years from that, you get 3 degrees Pisces. And it's ticking back towards Aquarius, what you will know as the age of Aquarius. Now, the Sphinx monitors and guards the age of the zeitgeist. But there's something people forget about the zeitgeist age, and that's the equator's right angle, which is the pole star, the North Pole star, 90 degrees. Okay? So the equator shows you the rising sun on March 21st, sunrise, which is the zeitgeist, the age we're in, age of Pisces, age of Taurus, age of Aquarius. That age has a ley line at right angles to itself to the North Pole. It's about the visual star. If you're in the south hemisphere, it would be equator plus southern pole star. Those two combine to give the zeitgeist of the age. Right now, the North Pole star points to Polaris in the Little Dipper, which we call upwest, the Jackal star, the Jackal constellation, the Jackal star. The Dogon of Mali, West Africa, call this area the Pale Fox. The Jackal is considered to us a cunning creature, a very slick, the trickster god. And when you combine, and the Kamal said that the Eurasian people, the non-black people of the world, particularly the northern Eurasian continent, Europe, there's no continent called Europe, unless you mean only England, which is a large body of land, like an island, giant island of sorts, or Norway and Switzerland area. They can be considered continents if you wish, but France, Spain, Germany, Belgium, they're not their own independent continent. They're part of a large landmass called Eurasia, which includes Western Europe, India, China, and Russia. They're all one giant landmass, so let no one confuse you telling you there's a European continent. It's just not true. But the Blacks of the Nile viewed particularly northwestern Eurasia, those people there, the more Caucasian people, as combining the stars of the Jackal, the trickster star, plus the star Thetis, the whale, also called the Kraken in Greek mythology. And when the Sphinx lines up due east and due north with these two stars, it's the rise of the Caucasian nations on the earth. And the Sphinx, looking at Pisces, Pisces is about drowning and binding. It shows two fish chains. It's the time of enslaving mankind, enslaving races of people through the jackal of trickery. The Pisces is religious. So religions will be used in the age of Pisces to enslave people through trickery of the Jackal North Pole star. Now, in around the year 2095 in modern time, this North Star will start leaning off of Polaris, off of the trickster Jackal, and start moving towards the next pole star, which is Theseus, the African king, the Ethiopian king. He's definitely an African king, known in mythology as such. This means as we move closer to Aquarius in the east, we're also moving closer to Theseus in the north. Aquarius is shown in Egypt. You can see it a bit here, kind of upside down, see if I can get it any bigger. It's right here, kind of upside down. This is the water bearer Aquarius as the Nile god. So we're seeing the Sphinx will start saying the zeitgeist is going to move away from Eurasia and European nations to the African continent, particularly within the African continent, the resurrection of the Nile culture. So he's looking eastwise at the Nile River constellation of Hapi, Aquarius, northwise at the African kingship. This is the resurrection by zeitgeist law of the cycle of the ages that the African royal houses, particularly of the pharaohs, the Nesubwata, the kings, will rise. And that's why we're seeing this kind of rise of Kemetic culture. They say by the year, in about 50 years, Africa will be the #1 economic power in the world. It's on track to becoming the #1 economic power in the world. And many European and Russian, Chinese, Eurasian nations are trying to make another grab for African resources to get what they don't have, to maintain their cultures at Africa's expense. Okay? So the Sphinx also reads that. And in our last moment, I want to mention a few things here. We saw here the Sphinx is looking here at the constellation of Leo in 10,500 BC. It's actually 10,909. I've done more exacting calculations. This is close, but not good enough. I have a video on my YouTube channel called The Most Important Video Ever Done. I was being dramatic to make the point that it starts the mark of the synchronization of the Kemetic calendar with the Giza Plateau. But a few quick notes of the Sphinx. Okay. The Sphinx does have here a Uraeus, a raised cobra, representing he's watching stars rising. The front part of the Sphinx, this front, like the front of from the chest to the front half is called the hati, the foremost or front part. That's looking at the culmination of stars. This back part of the haunch to the tail is called the peh, the swamp, the lower part, shows the setting of stars. The tail, which wraps around the right side, shows the nadir, or the anti-culmination of stars. And the head of the Sphinx links to a concept known in yoga as sattva, purity of consciousness. The body part, the main body part of the chest area of the Sphinx corresponds to what's called rajas, or ambition. And the back hump part here corresponds to what's called tamas, or pehu, which means swamp or wet. And those are the lazy, ignorant, dark kind of energies of people in their chart. He is staring at charts, okay? He's staring at your zodiac sign, your zodiac wheel. He's watching stars, okay? And I end with how to control your animal. There's a link below. If you want to purchase this audio, you will hear sounds in the audio. You will hear 50 sounds of Amun, cosmic consciousness. These are 50 sounds: A, I, E, O, U, Ka, Ki, Ke, Ko, Ku, Ra, Ri, Re, Ru, Ma, Mu. We go to these sounds of consonants and vowels that are conversations with cosmic consciousness. It also includes all 50 chakra sounds. These are 50 sounds of Amun, cosmic consciousness, plus the 50 chakra sounds. And since the chakras are kind of hot, they're kundalini, or a hoot cobra. They are cobras. They're very aggressive. I added a purifying sound, hareng, to help you purify the chakra as you invoke the sound. We have the sound of the 7 higher chakras: Ong, Hung, Kring, Shiring, Helring, Hering, Kling, Aim, Duhum, String, Swing, Husro. Those are the 7 higher chakras. If you watch my video on, it's called You Have 147 Chakras, and see more about that. It contains the sounds of the Oduifa, Ogbe, or Yekui, Boyodi. Very taming sounds. Contains the healing sounds of your organs and meridians, their basic sounds and their deeper sounds. They're deep healing sounds, particularly if you have chronic disease, if you have very severe disease. These sounds, I have had experience with people giving great help and benefit. So you're going to get all these sounds in a very simple format. I want to keep it very light and pure and etheric. You can play it in the background. In fact, I recommend you play this audio a lot in the background of your house or your car. You will start seeing results in about 3 weeks. You start feeling better, sleeping better, being more balanced. But in about 3 months, you'll see some real shifts happening in your life. They're very subtle. You won't even notice they're happening. But you'll find you're luckier, you're happier, you're more relaxed, you sleep deeper, you don't stress out as much. I put these sounds together into one audio because music calms the savage beast. To tame this lion of your impulses, instincts, knee-jerk reactions and conditionings and programmings and traumas, to calm all that down, instead of you going to therapy, which of course, if you need to go to therapy, we encourage you. But I'm saying we have other methods from Africa that can help in the healing process. And this is a very powerful set of sounds. These are sacred sounds and holy sounds. These are sounds of the angels that soothe your inner animal, your inner impulses, your inner reactiveness. Okay? And I really recommend you play it a lot. You may want to be careful playing it while you're sleeping. Try it and see if you can sleep. I prefer you play it, I recommend you play it during the day because some of the sounds are hot. They can contain all kinds of thermosonics. This is what I call somatogenesis, generation of new life, green life, genesis through cymatics, or sound waves that create geometric structures in the brain and subconscious mind. And this is the best way to kind of prep your chakras, tune and tame the chakras. In about a year, 2 years, you're going to find you're just very happy, very relaxed, you're very lucky, right place, right time. You need something, you think it, and you find the right book, you find the right person, you find the right video. It's quite miraculous how they work. And I wanted to make an audio where you didn't have to do much work at all. Just play it. Okay? So that's in the link below. You can get that on our website. And with that, I want to wrap this video up. I wish to thank you all for sticking with me through this video. I'll be doing more in this direction. Again, I'm turning the temple towards the temple of Nut, the temple of the goddess of the sky and astronomy. That'll be much more of my work you'll be seeing on YouTube. It's been the order of the gods and the oracles to go in this direction. And many new things are coming out. Very exciting things about the Egyptian calendar. Many wonderful things. So stay tuned. Duao, thank you very much. And remember, in my world, it's all love. Love for all, and all for love. Duao and Hotefu.